Twain to Peter. Change your thought on the clerk. Are you ready? Are we on? That's not good.
Bob told me I have to start the meeting, so. Well, that's good. I've avoided any obscenities, so we're
It's all good.
not a problem.
Another day at the ranch.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the January 16th, 2018 Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen's meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Present, Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Scasiotti, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan is trundling down the road here, and Town Council Richard Bowen.
Yes, for people who weren't paying attention last week, we're in our missing man formation, or I should say missing woman formation. Judy Whiteside has moved on to a new adventure in her life, and I just want to say, I'm not going to speak to the exact reasons why, but a lot of people are concerned that she's has some kind of health issue. It's not that. You should all be very grateful for Judy's service, and you should be very glad that she is doing this, finally doing something for herself. Let's see.
It's not our fault.
And it's not Alan's fault in particular.
Could be. I already signed.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they-
Pledge of Allegiance. How about, yeah, I think Mr. Pidgeon, 'cause he's not paying attention.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the second time now, so I got my quote.
No, there is no quota. Announcements. Selectman Tropiano.
Yeah, I do, actually. Tomorrow night is at 5 o'clock at the Church of the Good Shepherd is the drop-in center. For you who don't know what the drop-in center it is, a great program that's been put together to help with addiction issues. And whether you have alcohol issues or opioid issues or whatever they are, you can go there and get help. And there's a lot of good people there that can help you get started on the process of recovery. Not to mention, they've been very successful so far in the few weeks that they've been open of actually getting people into programs. Now, if you just happen to be somebody who is connected in some method or another to someone who has an addiction issue, and you've been frustrated, you don't know how to deal with it, you don't know how to help them, you don't know what, you can go there and get some help and counseling on how to deal with their addiction issue. So it's a good program. It's at 5 o'clock tomorrow at the Church of the Good Shepherd on High Street, and it runs till 9 o'clock. So please, if you need help, come on down.
Thank you. Selectman Scasiotti?
No, all set, thank you, sir.
What do you have, Clerk Slavin?
No official announcements. Again, I just want to make the comment that we will miss Mrs. Whiteside. She's really a huge loss to the town, and I hope everybody understands what it really is.
I just have one, it's not really an announcement because it's about a past event. Yesterday, the ice storm was really something else, and I really want to commend the Municipal Maintenance Department for getting out there as fast as they did and getting the roads sanded as quickly as they did. It's quite an undertaking to get everybody out and, you know, going, especially on a holiday. And it's funny, I was talking about this with the town administrator this morning, and interestingly enough, no snow means more cost because you actually have to run the trucks over the same routes, bring in the same people on holidays to do the job, but you have to pay for the materials that get put down as well. So this actually costs us tens of thousands of dollars, but in a situation like yesterday's where there's just no safe way to drive around town without salt and sand, they had to do it. And again, they did a great job getting it done really fast. And I know they were also out at night redoing a lot of roads too. So thank you to them for keeping the majority of us safe. Some people chose to drive a little faster than is recommended on ice and paid the cost. So let's see. Citizens' comments. Is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight? Okay, seeing none. We don't have any appointments, reappointments, or interviews. We do have one application for a change of manager for Salerno's, Inc. DBA Salerno's Function Hall, 196 Onset Avenue, Onset, Mass. If you'd like to come on up. And if you'll identify yourselves for the record, and you want to take a few seconds to tout the joys of hosting events in your hall, go right ahead.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm John Salerno from Salerno's Function Hall.
Nicole Maselli from Salerno's.
Okay.
I have all the required paperwork, everything's in process, so I'll make a motion to change for Salerno's, Inc., DBA Salerno's Function Hall, 196 Onset Ave, Onset, Mass. Change of manager to Nicole D. Maselli.
Second.
Congratulations, I think. A lot of work. Okay, I have a motion by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. The new license will be available in the Selectman's office tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, let's see. Well, we'll just knock off item A here. Item B, I think, is going to be the longest one, the discussion with the school building committee, and everything else is pretty much internal to us. In December, we voted to extend the Verizon cable contract for 90 days. Verizon, in its infinite wisdom, sent down an agreement for 30 days. So I need another vote just to extend it for another 30 days.
Motion so made to make the change.
I got to say something, though, okay? This should be a really easy contract. We already have a contract in place with Xfinity, and this should be a flip-flop contract, should be no issues whatsoever. This is the last time I'm going to vote to extend it. Next time, you're not getting my vote,
Yep.
okay? I'm done.
No, it's been a protracted negotiation process with them. Their business model appears to be changing.
That's fine.
The Cable Advisory Committee has met with them several times, beginning, I think, last May. It's been ongoing. They've had not one but two shifts in representatives that they're sending down, and we're hopeful today. I know that Matt Underhill spoke with both attorneys, ours and theirs, and we're hopeful that there will be no more need for any more meetings on this, that we can just execute the thing. There was one small detail left, and we're hopeful that we can get that done without a meeting. It's been a real process. I can't talk about it too much outside the confines of a public hearing, which I hope I don't have to go to. But thank you for the vote today.
It's been a common issue in other towns, so it's not just us.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
All right. Let's see. Next, discussion with members of the school building committee.
Do you want to vote on that?
That'll be too
Yeah, I guess
easy.
so. I was wondering if I'd held one. I was kind of losing.
Do you want to,
Yeah, you got me making speeches and I forgot where I was.
We're in Wareham right now.
Motion?
I did the motion already.
We have a second?
motion?
Who seconded? Motion by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400 with the reluctance of Selectman Tropiano. Now, could we have the members of the school building committee come up, please?
If you need to bring more chairs up, just bring them out.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I spy more members out there hiding on me, or?
Yeah, they're hiding.
Oh, you can't do that. You got to come up. How many members of your committee are there?
Here tonight,
Overall?
overall.
Overall, there's about 23.
23, so you're not gonna have a quorum problem if I have everybody come up. Okay, good. I don't want to get you in trouble here. Okay, so tell us what you've been up to.
All right, good evening, Selectmen. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you an update on the project. We wanted to, we're getting close to the point where we have to make a submission to the Massachusetts School Building Authority with their, one of the first major landmarks in this project. And we're starting to firm up our options about what we want to do. And the school building committee has had a number of discussions about looking at the different locations and the different models for the building. And we wanted to take this opportunity to make sure the selectmen and through you, the wider community is informed about what's going on. So we're going to go through some slides with me. I mean, it might be helpful if we just introduce ourselves to start
Yes.
with. So my name is Michael McMillan. I'm the school business manager.
Hi, Joan Siemens, principal at Minot Forest.
Hi, Kim Shaver Hood, superintendent.
Dennis Daly, Marlboro Group Architects.
Jack Crittenden, owner's project manager of PMA Consultants.
Okay, thank you. Yes, if you'd like to go ahead with your presentation, and we also have,
Have some representatives of the
Yep.
school building committee. You want to introduce yourself?
Jeff Sweat, School Committee.
Joyce Bakayaki, school committee.
Police Department.
Bernie Pigeon, Finance Committee.
All right, so I'm going to hand over to Chad, actually, and he's going to get us started and give us an outline of the project so far.
Great, thank you for having us again tonight. Last time we met, we had a chance to talk about the MSBA's process a little bit, so we have a few slides where we'll take it into a little bit more detail. So right now, we're in the feasibility study. That's two major submissions, the preliminary design program, which is the one that we need to make next week. And then after that, is something called a preferred schematic report, which we need to make on the first week of May. Preliminary design program, we narrow it down to just a handful of options for further study. And then at the preferred schematic report, a few months from now, we need to select one preferred option that Wareham wants to move forward with, which we submit to the MSBA. They review the entire submission, a very large submission, 1,000, 1,500 pages. This includes traffic studies, engineering, hazmat, you name it, it's in there. Assuming the MSBA approves us to move forward with our preferred schematic option, they have a board of directors meeting on June 27th. With the board of directors approval, then we proceed into schematic design. Schematic design culminates at another board of directors meeting. We are targeting December 12th for that second board of directors meeting with the MSBA. At that point, we would be seeking full funding authorization from the state to move forward into design development and eventually construction. So, jump to the next slide here. This is where we are in the feasibility and schematic process. So this is really what we'll be looking at through the end of this year. What you don't see in this particular view are the local funding authorizations that are required. Right now, the November ballot actually fits in nicely with the project schedule. Of course, being a state ballot, it would need this board's approval to be submitted to the Attorney General. The date's August 1st. With that approval submitted, we make a presentation or provide some sort of informational brochure or what have you at the fall town meeting. And then the community vote Any questions on MSBA process?
Anybody? No? Thanks.
So the PDP, the preliminary design program, this is the submission that goes in next week. There are three major components to that. The first is the educational program, which the district's educators, school committee, everybody's reviewing, everyone's put a lot of time into this. What this does is it really defines what the building needs to be and how it's going to operate once constructed. And the state has been adamant in recent years that we build a building to match the education program, not the other way around. And that's why they have the process set up the way that they do. They don't want a town arbitrarily setting a budget that's not going to support an education program.
Yep.
That is wasted dollars. So they want to make sure that whatever your education vision is, the building supports that vision. The second line item there, space summaries. So the MSBA has something called a space summary template. What they do is it's all formula driven. You enter the total proposed student enrollment, and it spits out the number of classrooms. They do give you a range in size of classrooms. It gives you an allowable space for your cafetorium, your gymnasium, so on and so forth. Any deviation from that, we really need to justify. If we're unable to justify a deviation from that and it's not supported by the educational program, the MSBA typically categorizes that square footage as being ineligible for reimbursement. So any of those items that don't fit into that space summary or are not supported by MSBA and DESI actually fall back 100% on the district, which is something we are trying to minimize to the maximum extent possible. Wareham has a very good reimbursement rate, base rate 71.58, and then incentives on top of that. So the more items that we can have reimbursed within this project, the lower the bottom line is for Wareham at the end of the day. Lastly, there, site scenarios and evaluation. We're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. What we've done is really taken a look at all sites in the town that are town-owned over 10 acres in size. Gone through some of the various constraints on those sites. Sort of a pros cons analysis. We've thrown costs at them. We're going to present that tonight. We can jump to the next slide. So key dates here. Tomorrow night we're meeting with the school committee and the school building committee. The purpose of that is to review and to approve the educational program for submission to the state next week. Another item or a component of that educational program is the enrollment scenario. So we have two different enrollments that are approved by the state, and we need to pick which one of those we're going to move forward with. Option one is just a Minot building, and option two is combining the Minot and Deacon's building. And we'll talk about some of the different options and costs in a moment. Of course, January 22nd, the entire PDP package needs to be voted on by the school building committee before it's submitted to the MSBA. We submit late next week, Thursday next week, I believe that is January 24th. And then April 17th is the target submission of that first draft report. It's a couple weeks early, so it's not a hard date, but that's what we are shooting for. And as I said earlier, the MSBA Board of Directors meeting is June 27th, so that is a key date for us. With that, I'll turn it over to Dennis from Mount Vernon, who will walk through some of the different sites and options.
Okay, thank you very much, Chad. As you can see by the map, we've looked at numerous sites throughout the town, and basically the parameters were to look at something that was greater than 9 acres, was town-owned, and then after that, we would look in closer detail to the various impacts of that site, whether it be its proximity to inhabited areas of the town, for bus routes and so forth, utilities, as well as the impact of NEPA floodplains, FEMA floodplains. So on the next, you can see on the next slide that we started with 12 sites, and we really narrowed it down to 4 sites. 2 of them being the Minot Forest Elementary School site and John Deacons Elementary School site. Town Hall / middle school site is also being explored, and there's a site on Minot Avenue which is undeveloped. We still do not have full knowledge of everything that's going on at that site, but it does not seem, because it's right next to the Minot Forest site, it doesn't seem like it's going to stay in contention much longer. So if we move to the next site, the Minot Forest School site, is shown here. And we have an overlay to the right which shows the FEMA and rare wildlife habitat influences on the site. And as we can see, they're all away from the site. The site is high and dry. It's clear from any FEMA flooding. 500-year and 100-year setbacks are very important in terms of the FEMA maps, in terms of how one can develop land within them. We also are concerned with the accessibility of the roads and so forth. And Minot Avenue in this area is, for the most part, pretty high and dry. So when we go to the next slide, we can see we showed a development of the site where we would be building a new school. At the very top of the site, as many of you probably know, it's a very steep site. Presently, the existing school is on the middle plateau where soccer fields are presently shown, and there's some play fields and some undeveloped land at the top plateau, which is fairly flat. There'll be some cut and fill required just to flatten that out, but it makes for an ideal location for a school site. Sewer and other utilities are available on Minot Avenue, making it attractive, as well as the fact that there already is a pump station there. It's a force main on Minot Avenue. There's a pump station there, and of course we're on top of the hill, so the journey to the pump station is taken care of by Mother Nature. So it has a lot of good things going for it. This footprint that you see is representative of a school, two-story school that would facilitate 1,020 students, grades 2, 3, 4, and 5.
K through 4. K through 4.
K through 4.
Yeah.
Pre-K
Yeah.
through 4. I'm sorry. Pre-K through 4. And the parking is also developed to facilitate that type of number of students in terms of having evening activities. Bus turnaround in the front, and as I said before, the middle plateau with soccer fields that are also provided with their own parking. On the next slide, we can see the John Deacon School site. Again, the site was just high and dry, clear of any endangered species habitat as well as FEMA floodplains. The issues that most influence the site are the railroad right-of-way, which is that curved line to the southwest of the site, and its proximity to Route I-195. In exploring the site, we saw that the best place to build a new building would be on the play fields, would allow the use of the Deacon School throughout the building of the school, and then upon the completion of the construction, the school could be torn down, and as the next slide will show, the site could be developed for play fields. Again, 1,020 student school, and in this particular one, we actually looked at something with an even larger footprint, just to assure ourselves that this would be a nice fit, since we were building it in close proximity to the existing school. So we also know that we can develop we've already developed an even smaller footprint that will work very nicely on that site. The town hall site. I would like to point out there's some light green lines I hope you can see there that sort of speak to the topography of the site. Elevation 10 is the one that's lowest, 20 and 30 is shown there. And also the utilities off of Marion Road, which come down right adjacent and adjacent to the town hall and in front of the middle school. We include the entire neighborhood on the left for the FEMA floodplain maps. The blue areas are representative of the 100-year floodplain, the gold areas of the 500-year floodplain. On the right-hand side, we've gone site-specific to show the 500-year floodplain in green, a white line to show the edges of the 100-year floodplain, and a dark blue, which is representative of the existing wetlands. one thing you can see from this particular slide is that every place that is high and dry is pretty much developed. Even in the case of the high school, there's actually the new delineation of the 500-year floodplain has some impact on the building of the high school. The lines have changed a bit over the years. So looking at the site and taking the footprint of the 1,020 student school, we saw the development of the area where the old Boys and Girls Club building and parking lot, as well as some play fields below it, could be. It's like the one place on the site that would facilitate a building that size. However, as the next slide will show, it is both in the wetlands and in the floodplain. Another thing that we have to be aware of, and it will take some more research, is that if indeed, and this is tidal waters and estuaries are not always considered a riverfront, but it takes that would take some more investigation. If it is indeed deemed a riverfront, it would mean that we would have to be 200 feet away from the riverfront for the building, and that sort of pushes us even further up, but still not out of the wet. And we would have to develop. We'd still have to develop the school and the parking. Now, in developing on such a site, what we would have to do is replicate all wetlands that we impact. We would also have to raise the elevation of the finished first floor of the building to at least 1 foot above the floodplain area. And in so doing, we would have to then replicate catch area for that displaced floodplain elsewhere on the site. So it's quite challenging. And the 16 Minot Avenue site is the one that I stated before, which is nearly next door to the existing Minot Forest School site. It's challenged in the sense that it has the floodplain extending into the FEMA floodplain, extending into Minot Avenue all along the base of the site, and making access to it rather difficult. And if we go to the endangered species, we can see that, we don't have it. But the area to the right, there's a paper road that runs through it, as you can see. The area to the right is completely endangered species zone, and there's some elsewhere on the rest of the site. The other thing that we've been made aware of, there's some speculation that there's some Native American artifacts to be found in that site. So that's why I was saying that that's a site, because of its proximity to the Minot Forest site and numerous other things that we could see coming off the table rather soon. And so if we go to the floor plans.
Is it worth taking questions on the sites?
Yeah,
before we
questions before we go to the floor plan.
No?
Not until you finish. First question, actually one question. You're talking about 1,020 students. The elementary school has how many students? The 2 elementary schools right now?
Each one?
Total.
Well, Minot Forest has 485 students right now, and Deacon's is over 500.
So we got about 1,000 students approximately. How many students in the middle school?
700.
723,
How many students in the high school?
485.
So we have excess capacity in the high school of almost 500 to 600 right now, correct?
It was built for that, yes.
Thank you.
For 900.
It was 9 with a capacity of 11 if needed.
900 something.
Thank you.
Anybody else? For now? Or would you rather wait till the end of the presentation?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would.
So the floor plans of the school show that, and I apologize that this is oriented opposite of the way you saw it on the Minot Forest site, but if one were to imagine Minot Avenue to the bottom of the screen, the front of the school would present 2 entries either side of an administrative area. I think I've pointed here. So we have an administrative center in the middle, and 2 different entries. And the idea was that we have a lower school, which would be here at upper school, and also an early childhood center. Now, the lower school would be representative of the Deacon School with the lower grades, the Minot Forest School and the early childhood center sort of as a standalone. By having these smaller pods, the students would be able to go through their entire elementary education in one building, but still stay in smaller learning communities. So what we see here is the 1st grade and the 3rd grade. This is pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. And then the central spine of the school would contain all those elements that are used by not only the students but the public as well. So these are the general core facilities of the school: gym and cafeteria and so forth. Kitchen and back of the house units, music in the back. As we move to the 2nd floor, on the next slide, we will see that the so we would have a 2nd and 4th grade. So but then tying both schools together would be a media center, which we like to think of as sort of the technology hub of the school, which would be flanked on either side by STEAM rooms. And STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And it's really the essence of project-based learning. And adjacent to that, we'd have the art rooms for each school with teacher workrooms, again, for each school. So these small learning communities really do come together as a little town. Each one we'd like to imagine as a neighborhood, all coming together as a larger educational village. We go to, I'll turn it over to Chad.
All right, so we touched on enrollment briefly earlier, and this is one of those decisions that we're looking to make in the next week. We're gonna put some numbers to these in a second, but the MSBA has 2 improved enrollment scenarios. So these are actually your existing populations broken down by grade as of a month or 2 ago. There's changed since then. On the right over here is what the MSBA has approved for construction of new buildings. So this is Minot alone, this is merging Minot and Deacon. You may remember the last time that we had met, the MSBA is really pushing districts these days to consolidate buildings. They found in a number of communities it certainly makes sense to construct larger, more efficient, so that you can pool resources, and then you also get the efficiencies of scale as well. So the MSBA is driving this dual enrollment strategy, something that we're seeing more often than not on many projects. A couple other MSBA assumptions here. So they assume an 85% space utilization. That means that 85% of rooms are occupied on average throughout the day at all times. It's a bit challenging in elementary school because you really have the students stay in one room for the bulk of their day. Teachers tend to own a room. So that 85% number is a bit tricky. But like I said, they do give us flexibility. A classroom can range anywhere from 900 to 1,000 square feet and still satisfy both SE and MSBA. So we can make more smaller classrooms or less larger classrooms. So what we're doing is really working with Joan and Kim and their teams to make sure that we have the optimum utilization of space within the proposed building. Growth opportunities, of course, the MSBA sizes classrooms to have 21 to 23 students in them, depending on what type of classroom. In addition of just 2 students is, of course, a 10% increase to the capacity of the overall building. And then special education, MSBA has an assumption of 8% special education. Wareham is a bit higher. So what we've done is in that space summary template, set aside the space to accommodate the needs of the school. And then the next step will be to have that conversation with DESE and MSBA, demonstrate that need, and then we do expect, in most cases, that is reimbursed space. Jump to the next slide. So as we get into some of the cost scenarios, I'm going to just explain the methodology behind this very quickly. What we have done is taken MSBA construction cost data. This is every elementary to middle or middle high school. Within the past 5 years, there's about 30 projects that the MSBA has data on. We broke them out in bands here. This is typical. So the tops are the elementary schools, these are middle schools. Yeah, these are middle high schools. We also filtered out any buildings under 70,000 square feet because that tends to skew the cost per square foot very, very high on a smaller building. Back to the efficiency scale that we touched on. So we look at those and we take the average number across all schools. So these two right columns are the averages. This is a new construction average and this is a renovation average. The dark blue bar on the bottom represents what it cost when it was built. But we're going back 5 years and the market's changed a lot in 5 years. So what we do on the right side here is we go back to the year it's built and then we take our industry observed escalation. So this is from a number of reports. We'll plug them in across the top and compound them so that they line up to Wareham's project scope and budget agreement. What we end up with is a new construction average cost. So this is average middle road MSBA building. This does not include site work, doesn't include demolition and abatement, of $314 a square foot for a new building, or $264 for a renovation. Any questions on that? We're going to get a little more technical in a second. Jump to the next one. So this is just a graphic right off the MSBA site, looking at school construction cost data. It really varies a lot of the other industries, but school construction has taken a particularly higher, more expensive route as far as escalation goes. Certainly as a select pool of contractors that are chasing that work, so the escalation factors for schools are different from what they might be in retail or hospitality or healthcare or what have you. Next slide. So we touched briefly on Wareham's reimbursement rate. The MSBA caps reimbursement rates at 80%. We're pretty close to the 80%, which is terrific. So what they do is they give you this base rate, that's the 71.58, and then they give you incentive points. So the highlighted incentive points are the ones that we would potentially be targeting. Maintenance points, really what they look at your maintenance program, they look at your maintenance budget, and they land you somewhere on a scale from 0 to 2 incentive points. We typically see most communities land at about 1 to 1.5 incentive points for maintenance. CM at risk, they no longer offer this point. They've had some changes in MSBA protocol as far as CM at risk goes. It's certainly a more expensive process, but we won't get into that too much tonight. Of course, we're not newly formed regionalized district, but we do have some renovation options, and the way they do this is they're prorated. So if you have a 100,000 square foot building and you renovate 40,000 square feet, they give you the 2/5 of the 5 points. So they'll give you 2 points out of 5. So it's just prorated there. And then the last one that will apply to us is the energy efficiency. So for different levels of energy efficiency attained, so this is through a CHIPS, which is a collaborative for high performance schools, or LEED, which is a program by the U.S. Green Building Council. If you achieve various levels of certification, you can get up to 2 points, and we are shooting for a full 2 points in Wareham on this project. So you would take those and add those onto the base rate of 71.58, so potentially an extra 2 points there, and an extra 1.5 here, brings you to your reimbursement rate of potentially 75%, thereabouts. The other important piece is when we talk about reimbursement rate, it's of eligible costs, and this is where you see a lot of districts really go off the rails. So it's important that working with this team up here and you guys, that we make sure that this building fits into those state guidelines as best as possible, so that the entire building is reimbursed. And there are certain things that there's just no way around it. It's not going to be paid for. An example of that is vinyl asbestos tile. The state doesn't pay for. They have various reasons for their different ineligibles. In that case, they don't want to penalize districts that went and abated VAT on their own and waited for the state. So up here are some of those other examples. So they cap reimbursable cost per square foot. They adjust that every year based on sales tax revenue. They're funded to sales tax revenue. So as sales tax or sales go up, they increase their cap. Site costs over 8% of building costs. This is going to be a big one for us. I don't know of any building that's hit that 8% number. It's the MSBA acknowledges it's low. Their rationale is that it levels the playing field between urban and rural communities. However, even in urban, inner city, we're not hitting 8%. So in a rural community like Wareham, we'd expect to be more around the 12%. So there's going to be some ineligibles Square footage exceeding net to gross, so they take our core education program, so call it 100,000 square feet, and they say, okay, you get 50% of that to put towards corridors, staircases, mechanical shafts, wall thicknesses, all those other items that are required to make the building work. And they'll reimburse up to that 50% factor. If you go over than that, so you have an inefficient floor plan, they are going to make that ineligible to be 100% of the district. We should be able to hit that number. Talked about asbestos tile, moving costs they don't pay for, swing space they don't pay for, legal fees they don't, land acquisition they don't. Anything off-site, this is an important one here. So that 16 Minot Ave option, even though it's just one door down, because it's not on the same site, the MSBA will not pay for demolition and abatement of the existing Minot Forest building because we're not using the same site. So the same applies for the town hall site and several of the other sites that we investigated, Charge Pond Road. So they will only pay for demo and abatement, or only reimburse demo and abatement on the site that you actually build the building. So that's definitely something important to keep in mind, is it plays heavily into this decision. Furniture and technology, they give us an allocation of $2,400 per student. Soft costs, they give you 20% of your construction costs. You really don't see any issues there. Auditoriums, they do not pay for in elementary or middle schools. We're not asking for one, so it doesn't apply to us. And gymnasiums over 6,000 square feet. Right now we're carrying a 6,000 square foot gym, so that shouldn't impact us either. So cost scenarios. So what we do is we take all those factors that we just talked about. We take the average cost per square foot of the building across the MSBA's pipeline in the past 5 years. And we start to play them out with the space summary template, the various footprints. So we take into consideration factors like when you do an addition and renovation on a building, you're inherently going to have some efficiencies because you're not making a floor plan from scratch where you can hit that grossing factor like we need to. So your grossing factor is going to be a bit higher. It might be a 1.6 instead of a 1.5. So we look at factors like that. We also look at items like on the town hall site. They would not participate in demolition and abatement costs of the Minot Forest building. Or on the town hall site, we reached out to Mount Vernon Group's civil engineer and had him run some numbers for soil import and export to make that site satisfy the FEMA maps and be able to build on that with the footprint of the building up high enough. So those costs are, I'm going to talk about those in a bit more detail. The other one on the far right of each, so I should have started where this whole band is the 1,020 student enrollment. This is just doing Minot, and this is hypothetically if you were to do Minot now and Deacon's 5 years from now. So the bottom bars, the dark bars, are the anticipated district share. The top lighter bars are what we might expect for reimbursement from the MSBA. So the total project cost is the combined value of those two bars. You'll see on this far left bar, this is a base repair option, and what it means is that we don't actually reconfigure the building footprint at all. We repair it, we bring it up to code, and that's it. The problem is the MSBA pushes us to design and construct these buildings to satisfy an educational program. So a base repair, obviously the existing building constructed 60 years ago doesn't satisfy the ed program, so the MSBA would not reimburse us on that scenario. So that would be 100% of the district. So while it is by far the lowest cost, it's actually a higher cost to the district. So you'd be looking at a little over 24 million versus a new building that you could construct for potentially 22 million. So this is where you really have to weigh the pros and cons of having MSBA's participation and playing by their rules and DESI's rules. On the far right side, so this is the option where we do Minot now. Those are the bottom three bars, and Deacon's later, the top three bars. This is a base repair option, the first bar. So if we base repaired Minot now, that bar right there is actually the same exact size as this bar right here. This middle one is two different addition renovation projects. So if we were to do an ad reno on Minot now, do this, which is actually the same as this. And if we were to add reno Deacon's later, it would be this amount for the district share, and that is a combined total. On the far right, these are new construction scenarios. So if you built a new building at Minot now, and then a new building at Deacon's 5 years from now. And again, that is your combined total. And we do expect, so this is another big asterisk. The MSBA is typically will not invite us, the same districts into their pipeline until their first project is closed out. So a statement of interest would be submitted. This assumes 5 years out.
Mhm.
In reality, it could be 7, 8+ years out before Deacon's would really have a go at it. I'll run across these bars real quick. This is an ad rental mine, you can see on the top. This is the addition renovation of Deacon's for the mine owner. This is new on the mine site. That is the lowest cost of mine option. That's because they're reimbursing everything. We have town stores, real stuff there. They're going to reimburse for the demolition and abatement of that building. New building at Deacon's. So in every scenario, we assume that Minot is getting demolished. The logic behind that, just where Minot is located, it's set back off the road. It's really not a building you want to mothball and leave abandoned sitting up there because it's going to turn into a hornet's nest fairly quickly. The Deacon's building, on the other hand, the real estate there with the amount of development that's happened, proximity to the railroad tracks, there's much, much more opportunities. It's a much more visible site. So if we were to construct on Minot, we'd assume that Deacon's is essentially set aside for whoever to determine what happens with that site and building down the road. Because there is obviously value to that particular property, more so than the Minot property. The new at Town Hall, the district cost on that one is a bit higher, and that's because of that soil import cost and because the demolition abatement would be reimbursed. And then these gray bars on the right, we were asked to run a hypothetical cost scenario. Maybe some private citizen developer, company, whoever, want to donate a parcel to the town to be constructed on, which is terrific, but we're still into that same demolition and abatement situation where the MSBA is not going to reimburse. So by default, it's going to be a more expensive option. Any questions on this? I know it's a lot of information. Alright, I'm gonna jump to the next one if I come back. So the town hall site, last time we met with this group, we did hear the town hall site was something that you wanted us to study. And we absolutely did a hard look at it. On the left here is what Dennis had presented. On the right is that scenario that we had asked the civil engineer for the project to take a look at. So what he's calculated in order to get this building up out of that floodplain is that we would have to import 30,000 yards of structural fill. And then over-excavate and import an additional 5,000 yards as we get towards the wetlands and we get into all those organic materials. Checked with, actually, that's a Suffolk Construction or BJ Associates number, one of our estimators. Play them out, we get a direct cost, we put the contractors' markups, and then all the engineering, permitting, third-party monitoring, especially dealing with structural fills. You don't want to end up with a settling issue. And you end up with a cost premium of $2.3 million to the district, which is obviously, from our perspective, it's a big number. It's really 5, 6, 7% of the total district share. So while the site can be done, it has challenges, and this is just one piece. So in addition to this, there's the demolition and abatement of the Minot building if we're still going to move forward with that. Traffic mitigation, obviously a very, very busy site, so streetlights needed to be put in out on Route 6. That's not factored in. Again, wouldn't be reimbursed by the MSBA. Demolition of the Boys and Girls Club is not in that number. I don't know if that building would need to be replicated. I don't know if there's somewhere else to move. Replication of wetlands, it's impossible to put a number on that until we actually sit with DEP, potentially Army Corps. I don't know how far that will actually go if we seriously start looking at this option. And then lastly, the cost escalation resulting. So this really ties back into the wetlands. Anytime we're dealing with wetlands, we end up with the submission. There's appeal periods. It's quite a process. It certainly is. And probably fairly safe to say that the aggressive timeline we have for a ballot vote this November would probably not happen if we were looking at this site and disturbing wetlands.
That's it.
The next one, Michael. And that's actually it.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, questions from the board?
I mean, it seems obvious to me which site is the viable site. As you say, I think the Minot site is the most viable site. It's completely high and dry. There's no wetlands or species habitats or any issues involved. It's also can be taken down, which it needs to be desperately. And then the other site, of course, where Deacon's is, Deacon's could be mothballed, and there's a lot of things that could happen to Deacon's in the end result. I mean, that's a kind of a valuable piece of land, actually. So there's a lot of things that could end up happening to that, that you couldn't do with Deacon's. In other words, you flip-flopped it. You couldn't do it with the other site. It wouldn't play out the same way because of the design. So it seems to me that it's almost obvious. I mean, the site around here, I remember when we built the high school, we had that wetlands issue and, all the stuff that went on relevant to that. And the water actually comes up to the back here during the hurricanes sometimes, which doesn't make it the best place. And it used to be the shelter, by the way, when I was young. In the 60s, you went to town hall. It was the place where you sheltered, and yet the water would be coming up the back. So it wasn't such a great idea. But it is what it is, So this site doesn't make any sense either. I mean, and plus the extra costs and fill and so on. And I think the Minot site, because of its elevation, is enhanced as far as the site work is concerned, because it's easily equalized, because you have so much material that you can move around on the site itself, which I think saves a lot of money. Being that I know something about this, I think that that's a big savings. So it seems to me that it's an obvious choice. I mean, you'll have to make your choice, but to me, it seems obvious. And you did some really nice work here, by the way. Thank you.
Selectman Scasiotti?
Wareham has a history of doing things the easy way. It costs us huge amounts of money in the long term. I don't look at this as a short project. What's the shelf life of the school going to be, people?
The state requires at least 50 years.
Okay, so basically 50 years, $2 million, insignificant, doesn't matter if you're looking at 50 years. I think we need to sit back a little bit and take a real close look. I look at the high school with a huge amount of excess room. I look at the student flight that Wareham has as far as population numbers. I look at the middle school. I haven't studied what Boston's doing, except they put out a note they're going to get rid of their middle schools. What they're going to do, I don't know. They're going to move them into the high schools, whatever. Every single city and town in Massachusetts is losing enrollment. Every state college is losing enrollment. I've been actively involved with this. That's why I know. My concern is that maybe we really need to think about moving 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something from the middle school over to the high school, and doing things that are hard decisions that you may or may not have parents be happy with you. But at the end of the day, you may have to build a smaller school, and then you possibly could move everything over here. Because if everything is centralized here, the bus process is easier, the cost of everything is simpler, and at the end of the day, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, every year we have an increase in school costs. We're at a point where, not just Wareham, majority of the cities and towns in Massachusetts cannot afford the increases in education because the formula's broken. It's not our fault. It's not the school's fault, it is. There's just a lot of issues. Can you actually afford to do this and make it work? Can you have the STEM classes and stuff like that? Can you actually, pay to put them in? We don't have a really art program. Where's the money going to come from? I'm just looking at this in dollars and cents and saying, I don't want to do this simple. I want to do this once and do it really right. We built a police station in 1971, which the town accepted because that's the most money the town was going to spend at the time. It was a huge mistake because the building wasn't expandable. It became, actually, it's a safety hazard now, and the police department badly needs a police station. If we had done it differently, we wouldn't have this issue. I don't want to do this again. I made it very clear, in the beginning, when we talked about this, that I was not going to vote for anything unless the two schools were combined some way. And at that time, I was told, no way, the MSBA won't pay for it. Now, all of a sudden, it's okay. So I think we need to do a little more visioning and say, we have this space here, we have this space here. Let's condense stuff up and see what we really need to build, what is sustainable, what this town can financially afford. Because I don't want to do a project in which 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we don't have any money. Thank you.
Yeah, I am glad that you put the work in so that we could quantify the different costs and the different difficulties for the sites. I find that especially helpful. I would agree with Selectman Tropiano that certainly the Minot one is the easiest. But I'm also mindful of what Clerk Slavin said about the efficiencies of having a campus approach. One of the things that we've looked at here, is the location of the school. Is there a reason that you couldn't put the school up closer to Marion Road than what is shown here? What I'm essentially seeing amongst all three of the options is the same structure going up. Is there a way to get that up closer to Marion Road? I think that needs to be investigated, because perhaps you would have less of the building in areas that have to be built up. If you look at the top of the picture on the left, there's a fair amount of land up there that you apparently wouldn't have to do too much to. I think it's interesting. We look at the site cost premium. I'm glad you quantified that at $2.3 million. But as Clerk Slavin says, you're talking about a 50 or hopefully a 75-year building. How much money per year are you actually expending over the course of 75 years? It's roughly $30,000 to have it here and have a campus approach. How much do you save with the buses staying here rather than being, brought back to municipal maintenance? How much do you save in terms of the school maintenance staff being in one central location and being able to go from here to here to here within a quarter mile of all the schools? These are all things that I think need to be examined and quantified as well. Because I think over time, we would find that 30 years hence, we may have preferred this option as opposed to the Minot option.
Can I just tone in for one thing? All right, so one of the costs that's not even here is the fact that when this building and a portion of it, just looking at the site, look at the 100-year and the 500-year, there is no way to put that building completely out of the flood zone. It's impossible. So therefore, it's going to require some elevation. And as we know, around here, it's 17.2 feet. That's our elevation number. It used to be 15 feet. It's now 17.2 feet with the new FEMA map, which means nothing can be in the elevation for 17.2, nothing can be below it. So you can't put any mechanicals, you can't put anything down there. It's going to have some elevation, which is, and it doesn't even fit on the site very well anyway. I get the campus approach, and everybody'd like to do that, but I don't see how that fits in there. I mean, just look at the way that thing fits in there now. I mean, even if you shrunk the building down a little bit, you still have the same problem. There's no place to put it. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's too many, and that cost, by the way, the elevation as far as raising the building up, that's not in that $2 million number, is it? Is it a portion? But that's not the total cost. When you think about elevating the building, moving all the structural, all the utilities and everything above the zone, not to mention getting people from that level to the next level, whatever that level goes. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that the water comes up to the back, right through the back through here during the hurricane. So if you're thinking about that, and you're thinking you have to be somewhere around 17 feet above what, mean high tide, right? It's going to be up a ways. I mean, we're not talking about 2 feet here. We may be talking about 4 or 5 feet, which is considerable. And it's going to look pretty bad when you're trying to get people up to that level as well, because now you got stairways and things of that nature. And how do you get handicapped people up to that level? You have to build a ramping system of some kind to get people up. This site doesn't make any sense to me. I'd love to have the campus thing. Everybody loves that. That's a great idea to keep everything all in one place. And as there's no one who knows about saving more money than this guy over here. But in this particular case, I don't think it works. Just my opinion.
Good.
part of this, and I'm going to use words that people hear all the time, which are overused, is thinking out of the box. But if you're going to have a two-story building, you're going to have some kind of elevator for people who have physical disabilities, et cetera. There's no reason why you can't build a three-story building. There's no reason why you can't change the design and shape of it to what you need. And I'm just trying to say that I think there needs to be a little more work on this, because my concern is straightforward, that I don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10, or 15 years. I don't want to build something that basically doesn't work for the town financially.
Well, but you know, you,
Let me finish.
Go ahead, yeah, finish.
I want to build something that I know, even when I'm gone, that it's still going to function and work. Because the worst thing we can do for this town is put something in place that we financially can't afford and have to start closing things. And that's what we tend to do. Or build something, take the easy way out, save some money, and at the end of the day, after 50 years, we find out that we're so far behind the 8 ball that we'll never recover from it. So let's do it once and do it right, but let's look at all the options really tightly. If you're running a high school with half capacity, there's no reason why we can't start to move people around. And if we're gonna continue to lose population as far as students as they go up through the grades, you know, you gotta be realistic what you have here.
the elevator can't go into the space either, it's a mechanical. So you have to
Gotta
do
be
it, you
outside.
have, it can't go to the space, to the flood area, it has to stay above it, because it's mechanical.
I understand
So you'd have to have stairways or ramping systems to
Elevator
get
go
up
to the
into it.
You can go to the front of the building, Patrick. It's not the flood zone in
Well,
the front.
I guess it could go on that one corner up there, in the front corner up there,
You go in the middle of the building, in the front.
somehow, but it's gonna make it tough getting in and out of that building.
Talk about is what makes it work.
I don't know. I mean, you know, you can talk about it, but I just think that,
I mean,
Make a mistake.
just, you know, hearing everybody talk here, I think we need to consider all three options going forward. Now, at this point in time, you don't have to settle on one option.
Not on an option, we are definitely approaching the time when we have to select an enrollment scenario.
Right.
And if there's an option up there that doesn't make sense, such as 16 Minot Ave, this is the time to eliminate it. The tighter that submission is and the narrower the focus is.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna, if it eventually winds up at mine, you want to use the existing site.
yeah, well, 16...
That makes the most sense. I don't think 16 makes any sense.
They're absolutely right about the Indian artifacts and stuff up in that area and all that, so that's not gonna work anyway. That site's gonna be, that's poo-pooed.
Yeah, yeah, I think you can draw the red line through that one at this point.
You could cut that one right off the list.
I don't even need to call for a vote for that. Just that's the clear consensus here.
Yeah.
That one's out. But I would go forward, try to develop a little more information for us if you could on the town hall site. To the extent that a three-story building could fit, you know, or at least involve less disturbance in the flood zone area, less work in the flood zone area. I think that's something we need to consider going forward. But, you know, these are things that are going to need to be decided by April, correct? If you're going to make a fall ballot. Yep. No, we understand that, and we understand that, you know, in asking for that, we would be, you know, kind of compressing your timeline a little bit and throwing some more work at you, but,
Nope, we can try to add, keeping the town hall site in the mix won't affect anything at this time.
yeah, well,
So the other, what I should add is the MSB will require us to move forward with the repair option. So base repair, it's the higher enrollment scenario, we need to run the scenarios with base repair on both buildings. It's lower, we just run it on one.
Yep.
And they'll also require us to carry forward an addition renovation option. So while it may not be the preferred option, the state requires us to.
They require all three,
Yeah.
they always have.
no, we have no control over that, so that's, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, we're not gonna do a Newton North project and kill everybody.
Mr. Sweat?
Just to,
Actually, you'll come up and use a microphone so the folks at home can hear you? Thanks.
just for clarification, and so it can help the committee move forward, given the commercial value of the Deacon's site, if we narrowed this down to Town Hall and the current Minot site, does that make sense to you?
Does to me.
Does to me also.
Yeah.
Does to me.
Okay, so
It
we've
does.
now, at least we've gone from 4 sites to 2 sites based on this consensus that it appears to exist.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have, I did notice on the agenda a possible vote. So if somebody wants to make a motion to narrow it down to those two.
Motion so made.
Second.
Okay, motion to narrow it down to further study of the town hall and Minot Forest existing school sites by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. So we're on the record as supporting that going forward, if that's helpful to you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, just generally speaking? Comments, or?
And is it fair to say that you also support the larger enrollment, the 1,020?
When you say the larger enrollment, explain what you mean.
Both schools, combining both schools?
Oh, the
Absolutely.
the two school,
Combine
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. In other words, this is seeking to replace both Deacon's and Minot schools.
Oh,
Yes, we absolutely support that.
Yeah, that was, for me anyways, that was a requirement to get any kind of vote out of me.
In fact, why don't we vote on that, too?
Okay, okay.
Motion?
So made.
Get somebody.
Yeah,
Second.
yeah, go ahead. Oh, come on up and use the mic.
Can you do the Pledge of Allegiance again when you come up?
Good. This goes on much longer, we might have to.
Clarity does not, I just have a question as to the committee which was formed by town meeting. How does the selectmen have a vote to supersede that?
We don't, but you don't get articles on the warrant unless we vote them on. You don't get articles on an election ballot unless we vote them on.
Oh, a little
So
leverage.
you kind
there.
of want us to take a stand.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
One other question. Can I just ask one other question? The other question is, if we went with this town hall scenario, the minor school, we wouldn't be able to demo.
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
So we'd be responsible for the cost of that demo.
Yes,
Ultimately.
But you al- Yeah.
both schools.
Yeah.
There's also a possibility of reusing that for possible trails and other things. You can't use it for a school unless the land's been deeded, it has to stay as a school. You have to look at, see what the deeds are for the properties we own. But there's other things you can do with a school. The Deacon School, there's no question, it has high commercial value. The minor school, you have to think out of, again, you have to do a little work on that.
That has no value.
It's-
Yeah.
That building is a disaster area, I know, but I went through it 15 years ago, and it was a disaster area. The showers were falling down and everything inside that building. That building is a wreck.
New
And
project for Buzzards Bay
That
Coalition
building, yeah, that building needs to be torn down, is what it needs to be,
in the land trust.
1.4 million.
yeah,
Yep.
to tear it down,
Yep.
yeah. Well,
Is
because you
the-
have to abate it.
Is the reimbursement rate for tear down the same, or is that a reduced rate, or?
It is,
Yes.
so demolition and abatement are both fully reimbursed, they're not subject to the cost per square foot cap. The only sort of caution there is the vinyl asbestos tile, they will not reimburse, but aside from that, they should reimburse everything.
I'm sure there's none in there.
You know, it's funny, we had some of that tile when we built the middle school. Do you remember? The cafeteria, we had to rip all that tile out, that was all, we had to pay for that.
Shh.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Well, it's, when it's waxed, it's encapsulated, it's not
I
an
know.
issue.
I know,
So you say.
But when you start taking it out, you got issues.
right? Yeah, anything that can make it friable, that's
Yeah,
when
exactly.
some of the guys in the white suits and the respirators come in and do it for you.
Take it
Um,
away, too.
We appreciate coming to you, and we certainly will ask to come back once we have some more information to share.
Great.
We'll report.
Okay.
Appreciate all
We
your
look forward to that. We're very pleased with all the work you've put in to date and your forbearance with us as we sort of bang around the site.
And I would also invite, if there are any Wareham residents watching that would have some specific questions, to please feel free to contact us. We'd be very happy to sit there and explain what we're looking at and why we're looking at it.
Okay, great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you all for your work.
One more thing.
Yep, just come on up to the mic so it doesn't really pick up that far away, even with your voice.
We'd love to have a representative from the Board of Selectmen replace Selectman Whiteside.
She cannot be replaced.
I understand that. But if there's a liaison from the Board of Selectmen, I think it would be advantageous to both parties.
Okay, that's a fair point. We'll get something on the agenda soon for that. Thank you all very much.
is a 50-year project.
Yeah, it is.
You know, do it, let's do it right. That's all. School lasts 50 years.
Wait a second till they clear.
Expense you can't afford it. We can barely afford the school budget every year as it is. Yeah, my mobile phone is on this one.
Always have your car ready, because we're tracked together. Have a good night.
Okay, moving on. We have the vote on notice of intent for the 2018 annual Springtown meeting. Do you want me to read that? Yeah, I'll blow through this. Doing one of my speed reading jobs. Town of Wareham, notice 2018 annual Springtown meeting, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth Shire Town, to the elected constable in the town of Wareham. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in accordance with the provisions of Division 1, Article 1, Section 3 of the bylaws of the town of Wareham amended, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town of Wareham that an annual town meeting has been called by the Board of Selectmen to be held at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018, for the election of officers, and to be adjourned until 7 p.m. on Monday, April 23rd, 2018, at which time the general business of the town meeting shall be transacted. The last day for submission of citizens petition articles for insertion in the warrant is 5 p.m. Thursday, February 8th, 2018. Warrant for this meeting will close Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. And you are hereby directed to serve this notice by posting attested copies thereof in at least one public place in each precinct within the town on or before Friday, February 2nd, 2018. Hereof fail not and make due return of the posting with your doings thereon to the town clerk, given on our hands at Wareham the 16th day in the January, year 2018, Wareham Board of Selectmen, Peter W. Titlebaum, Chairman, Alan H. Slavin, Clerk, Patrick G. Tropiano, Anthony R. Scaziotti, Jr. And that's a motion.
Second.
Yep. That was a motion by Clerk Slavin, because I'm not really supposed to make them, and seconded by Selectman Scaziotti. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so we have declared our intention to hold a town meeting. So if you gentlemen will all sign. That makes it official, and the constable can post it. Let's see. Continued discussion on possible town meeting warrant articles. Selectman Tropiano and I discussed an interesting one last week amongst ourselves, and that was the idea of overnight commercial parking of vehicles on town roads. A lot of towns ban this sort of thing. We don't have a ban for that, but is that something that we'd like to take up?
Well, we certainly should send it to the planning board. I mean, that would be where that should go. But yeah, I mean, it can be very problematic when you get big tractor trailers parking on the side of the road and in neighborhoods and things of that nature. And I don't know myself, and I've lived in a few towns over my life, not one of them allowed it.
Right.
Not one.
No, they don't. Typically.
We've received complaints and
All the time, I'll bet.
on streets like in Onset or Swiss, where you
Yeah,
have the small
little tiny
streets.
road.
Yeah.
Big tractor.
This wouldn't come in the context of a zoning bylaw, it would come in the context of a bylaw for the town.
Yeah.
So would it be road commissioners?
Should we have to, we could send it to the road commissioners, who could send it to the planning board ultimately, because the planning board would have to have a hearing on it and everything, I'm assuming.
No, actually, I don't think the planning board
Oh, I
would,
guess
'cause it's not a zoning
regular
bylaw.
Bylaw, yeah.
Yeah, it's just regular bylaw, so we could probably solicit the opinion, and again, we can put anything we want on the warrant.
Yeah.
We can solicit the opinion of the road commissioners.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea.
So why don't I go ahead and do that, and just,
Yeah,
you got a consensus on that?
yeah.
Okay.
I've had two complaints directly. One is, of course, the state road, which I contacted Mass DOT down by Shallow Furnace Road with a donut shop and sub shop. The tractor trailers parked on both sides of the road, and there was signs that said no parking. I believe they were supposed to replace them when they did the construction, redoing the road through there.
I believe
A lot of the signs came up.
they can't park on state roads overnight. Overnight, I believe they can't.
Not even that, the ambulance must even stop there
Yeah.
because there's no parking.
You can't even back out onto a state road.
And the other piece was,
Oh, you can't?
complaint I got was they weren't happy about one of the tow companies parking their vehicle on Main Street instead of off the road.
Well,
Because
believe me, there's more going on than just that
But I'm
one
just saying,
instance.
those are
There's
two
plenty more.
issues.
Yeah, there's plenty
I've
more. It's
seen.
happening all over town, and, you know, I mean, and not to single anybody out, but you've got landscapers doing it, you've got haulers doing it, you've got, tow people doing it, you've got these people doing it, that people doing it.
Let's take a look at it.
So, okay, I'll forward the
The
issue on.
Mound was another area that we were getting complaints on
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah,
got
especially
some
there, the
small-
roads are so narrow. I mean, for God's sakes, you can barely drive a golf cart down them as it is, and, you stick a big truck there. Okay, I'll solicit the input of the road commissioners on this. Other town meeting warrant articles.
I have nothing
Anybody
right
interested in?
now. Nothing right now. I have nothing.
Not much more time either.
No,
We're
but
running out
I
of
just
time.
but I'm gonna keep it on here just in case somebody has a light bulb go off in their head and say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we do this? Keep it right up till the end. Continued discussion of large-scale capital needs. I think we kind of beat on that one pretty good tonight already. You got something?
I met with the Council on Aging last Thursday about the community center again, and we're starting to get more input from different nonprofit groups. In that particular meeting, the YMCA stepped up and said they're very much interested in getting involved with a project at their facility. I've also spoke with Serped and the master plan, which they're going to be presenting on Thursday with Ken Buckland, internal discussion. I guess the survey that's come through so far, the community center was a major list on that they came back with as far as responses that the people in town were looking for. So that's going to show up also. So there's 3 or 4 different things that are percolating. There's a possibility we can do this. It won't be a town entity. It would be a private nonprofit entity, which keeps it out of the town as far as finances. And the biggest thing is to make sure it's sustainable, as I just mentioned a little while ago, that if we do this, it has to be able to self-fund itself and stay without having to have the town support it, or else it will fail. So I'm working slowly but steadily on that.
Okay, well, thank you for your continued efforts there. Anybody else have anything on this item? No. 48-hour business, Selectman Tropiano?
No.
Selectman Scasiotti? Clerk Slavin? I do have one item. This relates to the Blue Wave Solar. I'm going to ask for a vote to authorize the town administrator to execute necessary documents and releases relating to that.
For what?
You can explain.
It's the Blue Wave Solar site over on Charge Pond Road. As part of it, they have an easement across the municipal maintenance property. They just need to go about 10 feet on either side temporarily to grade it, to bring it into line. It's within the charter authority to
Yeah,
grant
as long as they're
temporary.
restored, who cares?
So we just thought we'd shore it up with you folks
Want a
here.
motion for that?
Yeah, please.
Motion so made.
Second.
Okay, motion to authorize the town administrator to execute the relevant documents and agreements by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. And go ye forth and
Is there
write ye
anything else,
name.
Tony?
I just asked, it will be restored, right?
Yeah, there's their easement's temporary, that goes away, but we definitely want them to perform maintenance on that going in the future as well, so.
Yeah, I'm sure the documents will be well cared for.
They have been. What?
Okey dokey then. Let's see. Town administrators report. You got anything to tell us tonight?
Mr. Chairman, it's been, I think we've all been going to the same meetings.
Yes.
All right, then we'll just gloss over what you don't have to say, and thank you for not saying it. Liaison initiative reports. Selectman Tropiano?
I actually have nothing tonight.
Okey doke. Selectman Scasiotti?
That's it.
And now the star of the show.
Next
I already
week I'll-
mentioned that I went to
whole
the
lot.
COAs to work on that issue there. Let's see. JTPG, we had a meeting, which is a transportation group for Southeast Mass. I presented Derek with a form that goes to Mass DOT. If we see any roads in which there's, basically craters, et cetera, that they may miss, we can fill out a form, send it in, and the way it'll get repaired. Normally, you go through a bunch of phone calls, you never get to anybody, so now there's a way to get that done a little bit easier.
Good.
As everybody knows, most of us went to the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast yesterday morning. It was well done. Derek brought his little gift. And we had-
My daughter was very excitable.
Yeah, no, she had a great time there. It was well done, and it was nice to see as consistent as it goes. I had the MPO meeting today, which is also another transportation group at Serpent, which makes the final decisions of which road projects get done for Southeast Mass's 27 communities. I had a little fun today. They needed a vice chair, and nobody wanted to step up, so I did. And they asked me if I wanted to say anything, and I said, yeah, this is great. So going forward, all projects go to Wareham, and I'll see you later. So that made them all very happy.
Okay, good.
That's it.
Okay, I don't really have anything. Consent agenda, we just have some minutes.
Yes, we have a set of minutes, standard minutes for August 1st, 2017. Motion to accept. Everybody was there.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes of August 1st, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. And for the last motion of the night,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Good night, Wareham. And drive safely tomorrow in the next storm.
Yeah.
Or actually, don't drive at all, and you'll be much safer.
Yeah, stay away from the ice.